this journey of educating ourselves, today we'll be talking about MEV and Flashbots with our guest, Tomasz Stańczak, the lead developer of Nethermind client. In the upcoming talk, you may expect to get an overview of minor extractable value, MEV, what Flashbot is, Flashbot's architecture, MEV before and after the merge of the Ethereum blockchain, etc. Along with me, this meeting is also joined by William Schwab and Alita Moore from the Ethereum cat holders. Thank you, Tomasz, for joining us on the show. I'm excited to hear what you have got to share on today's topic. So without any further delay, let's peep in.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Pooja. Thank you, Alita, William. Thank you, Ethereum cat herders, for organizing this one. So yeah, today talk presentation, it's mostly to bring some more light to what MEV is and also how Flashbots delivers solutions for this MEV being much more aligned with the ecosystem and much better for Ethereum. So as we will see in a moment, there's lots of things related to MEV, both the research, but also development and tooling that is available. So maybe first a bit of history. So the first conversations about MEV, I guess they started a long time ago, but there was this very important paper that was describing how exactly MEV happens, what are the risks related to letting MEV being executed without any tooling that is aligned with the ecosystem. And it described all the processes and how the gas prices behave, how the bots behave within the mempool. So the Flashbots 2.0 that talked about both the opportunities, the mechanisms, and the outcome of the developing MEV market. And we started seeing that probably like a year or 2 years ago, maybe even before, but it started being more and more visible with the DeFi projects rising, having higher TVL and exposing a lot of value on chain, which was not related to the main Ethereum ETH token, the cryptocurrency, actually, the native token, but the value that was inside the ERC20 and various DeFi protocols. So when we talk about MEV, very often we use the DarkForest term, and most of the MEV is inherently related to mempool. And why we talk about mempool? Because this is where we discover all the public transactions, and the public transactions change the state of the network. Whenever we change the state of the network, this is the moment when the prices on the DeFi systems and the prices of the tokens change, so they can become misaligned on different decentralized exchanges. Some of the liquidations become possible for the DeFi protocols that use the under collateralization, and various mechanisms suddenly become enabled based on the mempool transactions that are about to enter the block. So knowledge about what is in the mempool creates a lot of opportunities, because we know what will happen after the block, but maybe even we can react within the same block by injecting various transactions in between the transactions that we see publicly. So if there is some particularly big opportunity, a transaction that moves price on one of the decentralized exchange a lot, but doesn't move the price on another decentralized exchange, then we have this misalignment, and we want to be, as a bot builder, a MEV searcher bot builder, we want to be the ones that execute our own transactions exactly around the transactions that creates the opportunity. And this is not only the arbitrage in the sense of the very positive MEV that leads to the price discovery, leads to the very aligned prices within the DeFi ecosystem, but also this negative MEV, which is like all the front running, the sandwiching, and so on. And that's why we talk about DarkForest. So first of all, DarkForest is about the detection and being visible, and then whenever we are being detected, someone can use this opportunity to play against us. And I like the sandwich bots, sandwiching bots that take our our trades from Uniswap, for example, they can wrap the transaction, and it's just because we are for a moment we are visible in the mempool, and they react to that. And MEV is just the general description of all the miner extractable value. So ability of a miner to extract value from the blockchain, from the misalignments and in the pricing, from the opportunities, liquidations, and trades that are happening by inserting, reordering, or censoring transactions. And when we think about Flashbots, which very often comes now in pair when we mention MEV, the Flashbots mission is really to mitigate all the negative things around MEV and bring the network safety and align the ecosystem and the community around Ethereum with how MEV can be delivered. So Flashbots is not MEV. Flashbots delivers research and tools around MEV that, first of all, make this miner extractable value a bit more like community extractable value. So something that you make a bit more democratized, more decentralized. And also does a lot of research that says if there is any threat to the network that comes from MEV, then how do we deal with it? What do we deliver to make sure that the network is safe, that the network is protected? Can we actually use the Flashbots tools to prevent negative MEV, to prevent attacks on the network, to prevent hacks, and so on and so on? So all of that is within the R&D mission of Flashbots. And this is this famous great power, great responsibility. Nowadays, Flashbots provides the tooling for 85% of the hash rate. So 85% of the hash rates from the mining pools, miners, solo miners altogether uses either a version of a tool that is MEV Geth that allows for Flashbots to deliver the MEV bundles, or uses some kind of implementation of the spec, of the officially available Flashbot spec. And how the Flashbots architecture looks for this delivery of MEV in a more democratized way. So here we see on the left side the searchers. So who are the searchers? Anyone can be a searcher. And while this role becomes more and more sophisticated over time, even nowadays, you can hope that you can become searcher by spending maybe a weekend on writing tools and experimenting and finding some opportunities, but just playing with the tools documentation on Flashbots, and that's extremely rewarding, fun. Obviously, can take a lot of gas payments and not necessarily brings an easy way to extract value, but definitely it's simpler than it was before, because the very name of the miner extractable value points at the miner as the one that is ultimately allowed to extract all the value. And this is the true thing if you assume that the miner actually wants to do that and has the ability to do that, more like a skill to do that, because the ability is there. Like miner is the ultimate creator of the block, ultimate sequencer of the transactions in a block. But the miner business is very often not very similar to the type of skill set that is required for searching MEV opportunities, which means that you can simply outsource that to the scores of MEV searchers that use the Flashbots relay to deliver the information about how they would like to order the transactions, how they would like to insert their own transactions, and how they would like to split the payment between the miner and the searcher themselves. And this is the architecture that's available nowadays. So we show here 3 relays. The Flashbots approach and Flashbots mission is really to democratize the solution, not only on the searcher side, but also allow anyone to run the relay. And there's lots of research to make this happen, to make the relays something that anyone can run, and that anyone can run in a way that MEV searcher can trust it, that it will not try to steal this MEV opportunity. Because similarly, as we're talking about detection in the DarkForest, so that detection mechanism also works on the bundles if they're not protected by some level of trust nowadays with Flashbots. or some privacy algorithm solutions technology in the future that says you cannot be detected if you're sending a bundle. Your knowledge about the MEV opportunity cannot be stolen from you. When I'm talking about bundles and transactions that we're sending to Relay, so what they really are. So it's a MEV bundle is simply a list of transactions that have to be executed together. And we assume that MEV bundle has to be executed at the front of the block. So that's the kind of tooling that Flashbots provides and the definition for the bundle. So by reordering and inserting transactions, you say, okay, so let's leave the rest of the block the way it is. But at the front of the block, we insert some of our transactions and we reorder some of the transactions that we see in the public mempool. If you remember this sensory component, which I struck out, it's not delivered in any way by Flashbots. The sensoring transaction is not something that is desired, and it's not something that is delivered. The MEV by itself does assume that the miner can actually keep sensoring transactions within a block just to increase their value. But this is not something that Flashbots provides. The mega bundle concept that comes with Flashbots version 0.4 that is just being built is the concept of preparing more than a single bundle, like merging and simulating multiple bundles, verifying that they can run independently. They do not affect each other bundle profitability, and verifying what is the most profitable for miner way of executing them together. Which of the bundles provide the maximum value to the miners? And because it's the Flashbots way, when you think about the most profitable bundle, you should think about the most profitable bundle also for the searchers and the ecosystem in a way, because of this targeting of the positive MEV and the democratized MEV access. Flashbots, apart from this main architecture, delivers the ideas of Flashbots auction. So this is the description of the set of technologies that provide the relay, the bundles. Let me maybe switch on the line. So Flashbots auction is the set of the tools that allow for these bundles to be delivered to the miners. Why do we call it Flashbots auction? Because we're replacing the old style price gas auction, the one that was leading to very high gas prices very often on the network, the one where the bots were competing with each other by just simply bidding up all the time on what they were planning to pay. We replace it with the sealed bid auction mechanism of the Flashbots. Then there is Flashbots data, which is a set of tools, dashboards, tools for inspection of the data on-chain and MEV data post-factum, or also real-life data, real-time data. And this, I will show a few of those, the examples in a moment. And then there is Flashbots research, which is just the idea of collaborating with the top researchers in the field, with contributors in an open way, inviting the speakers, organizing the MEV roasts, the Flashbots roasts, the fact sessions that describe the various important concepts, with the top researchers talking about it for hours and hours straight together, and dealing with the things that are hard to be really explored solo. So all of that comes from Flashbots. And you can find a description of all of those at the documentation of Flashbots. So those tools that I mentioned within those three categories, so you can see MEV inspect. So it's just being rebuilt with the Python tools for exploring various main, most popular DeFi protocols and detecting the liquidation opportunities, misalignments, prices, exploring what happens, what kind of events are happening there. And this set of tools can allow you to build more efficient searchers. So you can have your bots use MEV inspect to quickly detect information from the mempool, from the blockchain state, from the Ethereum state. Then there is MEV Explore. So this is the way of exploring all the MEV transactions, and the dashboards, which shows the Flashbots operations, like all the actions happening on chain as a result of Flashbots bundles. We have the Ethers.js provider that allows you to send the bundles, prepare the bundles, and send them to the relay, to the Flashbots relay. MEV Geth, which is the main tool used by miners for accepting the bundles from the Flashbots relay. So MEV Geth itself, it's a fork of Geth. It's a fork of Geth with just a handful of commits on top, which are described in details in documentation. So you can review. It's open source. This is definitely a huge commitment of the Flashbots research and development. Everything is open source. All the research documents there, as soon as they leave the node stage, they're available for contributors to review and contribute to. And as I mentioned, there is also the specification. So miners do not have to use exactly this version. Very often miners have their own modifications to the Geth nodes, either some optimization specific for their infrastructure, or maybe some modifications that allow them to inject their own transactions based on their agreements, or maybe even old style MEV, this private MEV that was not available for everyone. But generally, they provide solutions that are consistent with the spec and consistent with what we have here in the MEV Geth repository. The Explore Flashbots is the MEV activity on the Ethereum network. So this is not only Flashbots MEV, but generally exploring what happens, what kind of extraction is there on the network, and showing you various statistics since the beginning of 2020, showing you that the daily extracted MEV is higher at times of higher volatility, and it grows with new DeFi protocols appearing, with the volumes growing on DeFi space. And you see these numbers are pretty high. So they soon will be reaching $1 billion of value extracted from MEV. The dashboard shows you the information about Flashbots. And for example, here you have information on the number of blocks, including Flashbots bundles. So this number was reaching at some point 65%. It means that 2 out of 3 blocks happening on mainnet nowadays would have the bundles delivered by Flashbots relay. So a huge number, and as you think of this 85% of the hash rate, out of this 85% of the hash rate, you see 65% of blocks being mined with Flashbots bundles. Why not 85%? Because sometimes miner will decide to, they will not receive the particularly valuable bundles and either mine empty blocks or decide for the vanilla block without any bundles inside. Also, when you think about the Flashbots bundles as percentage of the Ethereum block space, I really like this number. It's around 2-3%. So it's not a lot of gas that is used by the bundles themselves. It's a lot of value, but they don't take that much of the block space. So 3% when you think about 15 million blocks. So this would be around 400,000 gas. What's about the research? So Flashbots runs a lot of research calls, and it's all documented in the Flashbots MEV research repository. And you're very welcome to participate in that research. And mostly it's related to all the important components of Ethereum scaling nowadays, of the Ethereum future, mostly a few months to 2 years future of Ethereum. So we're thinking here about what happens after the merge, what happens with Ethereum 2 MEV, what should happen with the MEV available on side chains like Polygon or xDAI, what's the layer 2 solution for MEV, because we know that nowadays mostly it's centralized sequencers. How can we decentralize this sequencing of transactions on layer 2? how they play together. So can you do the MEV across chains or shards or side chains? What are the solutions for the privacy of bundles? So one of the research area is MEV-SGX that is run by Flashbots, and the actual implementation of the solution is being prepared. And then there is also crypto economic design for the decentralized relay. That is one area of exploration that you can participate in as well. Talking about MEV-SGX, so this privacy of the bundles, which is a very important thing, because nowadays you have to assume quite a lot of trust within the Flashbots ecosystem. So first of all, searchers trust MEV relay on Flashbots that the bundles will not be leaked to the public or leaked to any other participants, really, before they include it in the block. The searchers also trust that their bundles will not be disclosed if they're not included in the block. So we assume that Flashbots does discard all the information about bundles, does not make it public if the bundles do not land on blocks. And also, in a way, Flashbot has to trust miners that miners will not take the bundles away. How do you steal the bundle? You take the bundle, you analyze its content, and you replace the addresses that are actually benefiting from the bundle with your own, and probably send it again to the relay. So this is constantly being monitored and detected by Flashbots to make sure that the miners follow the code of conduct. Because miners participating in the Flashbots relay operations, they have to build a reputation. They do not want to lose that source of revenue. Then this works, but with the Flashbots being in the center, you really assume some trust there and some very efficient execution of this monitoring and overseeing. And one of the main areas of research. Oh yes, sorry.
So that means that I can't like just spin up MEV Geth or something else that's Flashbots compliant and start receiving bundles like on my own. Like as in there's like a vetting process for who's able to receive the bundles?
Yes. So if you are a solo miner or a small mining pool, then you have to fill in the form and get in touch with Flashbots and be registered with the relay. Otherwise, the relay will not deliver bundles to you. For that simple reason that you could that if you are you're not trusted by relay, you can potentially steal all the bundles and just keep the MEV value for yourself.
I was wondering why that wasn't possible, actually. So yeah, that did answer that question. I mean, I was wondering why it didn't become kind of just a second mempool, and then anyone who's tuned in to that would then be able to resubmit either with a higher price or whatever the case was. So that explains that very elegantly. So I mean, it's
exactly that's what
it's a permission network. Mm-hmm.
So one of the important area of research and development in Flashbots is this SGX solution. So you have here the full description of a bit more complex process of setting up the enclaves, protected execution environments that can prepare the block and in a secret way share it with miner within SGX. Allow miner to verify the value of that block, choose the most valuable block, start mining on top of it, and only after finding the proof of work solution, being able to extract the decrypted body of the block for publication. And this solution is being built and should be soon available. So there are some technical challenges, but we are dealing with them one by one, and we have first fantastic results, and there's also a lot of exploration of how it looks in the future, so how it looks with new versions of SGX, how it looks in Ethereum 2, and so on. So this detailed description of the solution is available at the ETH research forum. So make sure that you go there, and if you're interested in this, either research or development of the area, make sure that you reach out to Flashbots. And one fantastic way of reaching out to Flashbots is by just joining the Discord server and participating in the conversation there and reaching out to any of the Flashbots crew and starting contributing. It's extremely rewarding and very, very exciting. What else we built? So together with the Nethermind team, so we built the MEV plugin that enables the xDAI MEV. xDAI MEV, because of xDAI running with the PostDAO consensus, it's not possible to run it with MEV Geth, right? So Nethermind is the only way to deliver the bundles to xDAI. And this is just being finalized now. We tested first bundle delivery last week, and I think there'll be some announcements next week on how exactly to execute that, what xDAI relays to connect to. And I think today we've seen some tweets about ideas on MEV around the DarkForest game, so the ZK game on xDAI, so that you can execute some like searching or attacks on the planets within the MEV solution. So pretty exciting. Then a lot of research is done around Ethereum 2 MEV. So some of the main presentations and discussions around the topic would be by Vitalik, the proposer block builder separation design. That was also discussed later on this 8-hour block on MEV organized by Flashbots that you should be able to see somewhere there in the Flashbots documents at the repositories. Then there is also analysis of how to build Eth2 in the most basic way with liquid staking together. And there's presentation of the project from the ETH Global Hackathon. So watch this one, it's just 5 minutes. And we also discuss in multiple places how MEV looks after the merge of Ethereum 1 and Ethereum 2. And we show it with Nethermind and Flashbots, but also in some other configurations. And some of those solutions I'll try to explain you a bit more now. So why MEV in Ethereum 2 is important for validators to look at? Because it greatly improves the rewards of the validators. The difference is so huge that it's simply a big thing and a great loss to ignore MEV entirely when you run validators. And that's quite increases also the volatility of your revenue within a year. But simply the big question is how to make sure that this MEV is available equally for small validators the same way as for the big validator networks. So if I run just one independent validator node, can I get the same quality MEV as everyone else? So when we talk about Ethereum 2 MEV, it's worth to discuss how the merge looks now in the current design. So the selection of transactions and block building looks entirely the same in the current design. So whether it's before the merge or after the merge is the old style Ethereum 1 client that listens to the mempool, collects transactions, sequences them, and prepares the block. And just that block is either immediately added to Ethereum 1 on the proof of work by the miner that created the block, or after the merge, it's passed to the beacon chain as the beacon chain that publishes the block, proposes the block. So that's why after the merge, we talked about the separation of the block builder and the block proposer. And if there is a separation, it means that we can have various dynamic with multiple different builders competing for the slot the proposer, the validator has, or also block builders trying to build a market of their quality MEV and entering into agreements with proposers. And this proposer block builder separation, it assumes that, first of all, you don't have to have a trusted builder to deliver MEV there. So you can say, okay, the design of the protocol says that if there is a block builder, they don't have to be trusted and known to the public to be equally verifiable and equally, like in a trustless way, worthy of MEV bundles that we would send there. Similarly with proposer, we don't want them to be trusted because it improves the centralization of the network. Anyone can join, be a proposer, and receive MEV in a trustless way and deliver that MEV to the validator. Weak proposer friendly, so not only you don't have to be trusted and known to the network, but also you don't have to have a lot of validators to get good MEV. And then we want those solutions to be simple and also avoid the bundle stealing. So that's what Vitalik mentioned as a set of requirements for the design. And there are two families of design for consensus embedded MEV in Ethereum 2. And those include a solution where you have a single header selected by the block proposer from the set of headers that block builders create. So block builders propose headers of the MEV bundles, and they commit to the body, and they prepare a payment for the block builder from the block proposer. And then after the block proposer selects the most profitable one, it either receives the body or not. So the block builder can disclose the body or not. And after that, we have the fork choice rule that may allow us to create attestations and vote for blocks depending on whether the body is available or not. And the payout of this payment from the builder to the proposer can be split between them depending on whether the body was available or not. And there are some detailed edge cases that are worth to explore. So make sure that you read a longer conversation between Vitalik and multiple researchers on the topic. The second family of solutions is similar in a way, but after you have the headers published, the block proposer selects a subset of headers and signs them and says that I will publish one of the bodies from these headers. And then the block builder collects the bodies and once again selects one of those that they signed before, right? So there is a bit like two-step conversation between block builders and proposers. And because there are many of the block builders, so in the end, you don't have to think about the fork choice rule because you expect always to land with a header and a body of one of the blocks. And just sometimes the block proposer may end up having to send their own block solution, but then probably with some punishment if they don't select from a broader set of bodies provided. Now, if we think about the solution that doesn't include the proposer and block builder separation in the consensus level, and then we may look at one of the solutions, the naive solution that represents a very similar relay and miner approach that we had in Ethereum 1 now. So that we have in Ethereum 1 now. So look at Flashbot solution now, and we say how it would work in the simplest way in Ethereum 2. And that proposed solution from the ETH Global Hackathon shows the situation when you have a staking pool, which can be liquid staking like Lido. You have the validators that work with that staking pool, so they're registered to be the block validators and proposers of the blocks. And we have Ethereum 1 node operator. So it might be Lido, it might be someone else that prepares the blocks. So it's a block builder. So it is separation, but not on the consensus level with some additional tooling on ensuring the privacy of the bundles. It's without any of those. So you still have very similar architecture where MEV searchers send their bundles to the relay. Relay provides those bundles to the Ethereum 1 node. Ethereum 1 node prepares the best bundles, connects the block, and during the block processing, you're splitting the payment. But in the past, you would split the payment between the searcher and the miner. And here you're splitting the payment between the validators, between staking pool and Ethereum 1 node. And this naive solution, the simple solution, suggests to split it by everyone receives 1/3 of the pool, but it can be really any split depending on the strength of particular participants, of all the market participants. And then after the block is created, Ethereum 2 client simply broadcast that to the network for attestation and voting. The second solution talks about something that Jason Periani of Flashbots suggested, of using peer-to-peer mempool for delivering transactions. So it's not exactly a solution only for Ethereum 2. It can actually work in Ethereum 1 as well. But it was suggested as part of the research for Ethereum 2. So we started talking about it in the context of Ethereum 2 MEV. So we have MEV searchers that create bundles. They encrypt them with a key that the validator of the particular block suggests as the key that they accept. So they use a public key that they can decrypt later. And they kind of nominate block builders in the registry that they would accept blocks with from. The bundles are being delivered over the mempool to the block builders. Block builders can decrypt them if this bundle was directed by for them. And then they publish the blocks to the validators, and validators as block proposers broadcast that to the network. So there is one solution here, which is called carrier transaction. And this is just to not require a special transaction type for this solution. We say that we can use the very basic standard transaction and include the encrypted MEV bundle, encrypted with the public key of the target block builder inside the call data. So we still pay for the delivery of this transaction, carrier transaction, which means that a peer-to-peer network will be delivering this transaction as everything else, because it's simply not looking any different from any other transaction. So it shouldn't, there's no reason to censor it. There's no reason to reject it in the mempool. It's a transaction that pays for itself and delivers some information to the miners. Now, as part of the solution, because we had the registry that talks about miners selecting, so validators selecting which block builders they accept, the block builders can tell how they build blocks. So they can say, these are the sections that we accept. For example, in the front of the block, we include the partner A, which might be one of the layer 2 solutions providing batch transactions in the front. Then as the second level, you can have Flashbots MEV and then public mempool, and then maybe Flashbots private transactions. When we talk about Flashbots private transactions, this would be transactions that they're more like protected transactions, not the ones that extract MEV, but that protect themselves from MEV. So if you trade on Uniswap and you don't want to be sandwiched, you want to use the endpoints from Flashbots that allow you to simply deliver that transaction without any more complex bundle. So this is not available now, but should be available soon, I think. It's part of the deliveries of Flashbots. The other big thing that comes with Ethereum 2 is the Multiblock MEV. And why it's important, because not many DeFi protocols analyze these Multiblock MEV solutions. And because of lack of analysis, they may miss some particularly risky scenarios, some threat to the stability of their DeFi protocols, especially around governance, around some like multi-block execution of series of trades that can prevent others from, for example, liquidating the pool at the time when it's under collateralized, severely under collateralized. And we can do like some series of blocks of execution. Why it comes only in Ethereum 2? Because now with the miners, you have a bit like less of a chance, less probability that you'll mine multiple blocks in a row. But in Ethereum 2, the validator can know in advance that they'll be mining multiple blocks in a row. That if they have a big chunk of the network, they can know about it like a few minutes before that they will have 2, 3, or 4 blocks. And they can prepare some attacks, nasty attacks on the network, on the DeFi really. So something to explore and something to research. There are some great articles already about it, but much more to uncover. What happens to MEV-SGX after Ethereum 2? So since we've seen this block proposer builder separation where you only uncover the bundles after proposer selects the header. So this was like a built-in solution for the privacy of MEV bundles. If you don't have that solution, if you don't have block proposer separation, block builder proposer separation, then you can use the current mechanism, like the current demerge specification, with the knowledge that if you start signing things inside the enclave and share the signed block with the block builder before publishing it to the network, then you no longer have ability to sign another block because you're risking slashing. So this is something fresh that we explore now, looking how SGX works in Ethereum too. There might be some new ideas here, but yeah, this all should work, but should be researched more. And this is everything that I prepared for you today. And anyone who is interested in joining Flashbots would be great if you send an email to jobs@flashbots.net. And if you want to follow what I talk about when I talk about MEV and Flashbots, then follow me on Twitter or anybody else from the Flashbots crew. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
First of all, thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. Now I'd like to open the floor for any technical question, William or Anita.
I guess the first question I'd want to ask is just kind of like the general question where it all starts. A lot of the MEV, though it does seem like from your classifications, I think this isn't all MEV, but a lot of MEV seems to come from the fact that transaction sequencing ultimately is up to the miner. Do we think that's a bug or a feature? Like, would in a perfect blockchain, if such a thing would ever exist, would there be arbitrary transaction ordering that the miner couldn't affect, or do you think that it's better if we keep it this way with the MEV?
So it's a good question because there are already many challenges to the status quo. So first of all, we often would ask question, can we make sure that on the protocol level, we enforce some ordering that cannot be modified by miners? And there are a few problems with that. So if you define the order based on some hash, like some randomization of what the transaction hash is, then whoever wants to order transaction can modify some of the transaction call data so long until they find the desired hash that will place the ordering that they want. So then when we propose this solution, we can ask, can we introduce some kind of required delay, so verifiable delay function into this reordering, the hashing of the transaction? It causes the problem of latency of the transactions. Like so suddenly there is some delay before the block can be constructed, and still the powerful players that can parallelize a lot of simulations of various block orderings can take advantage of it. But some solutions are explored by layer 2 providers. So you can look at the Vidu solution from Starknet for their sequencer. They do explore that space. So in a perfect blockchain, probably yes, you would have randomization within a block, and then the healthy arbitrage-based MEV on DeFi happening in the next block based on the previous block modifications, instead of something that can front run you when you execute DeFi properties. The other challenge to this, and it's also related to this perfect world sequencing, is also a bit more risky. So when you think about legislation now, there are suggestions that the miners or validators should be responsible for reporting and some kind of fair or approved way of sequencing transactions. I think the problem and challenge with this one, and big threat to the network, is that a miner that's no longer thinking only about their own benefit, which by the protocol design most often, or almost entirely, is aligned with the network benefit, that the miner may start following some kind of government-enforced rules on what transactions to allow or not. And then the censoring that we were talking about, that it's not provided within the tooling that is ecosystem aligned, the censoring can be introduced by the governments if they have the ability to enforce the behavior on miners. So I would say that sometimes this desired perfect world might be a risky world that is far from perfect. Sometimes it might be simply challenging from technical perspective.
That's very interesting. Isn't the game theory would be that if the miner needs to be receiving enough profit to resist any censorship bribe, but if we take away the profitability of the MEV, then they're susceptible to channels just influencing them in other directions because their bottom line is much, much lower. Is that correct?
This probably as well. Although what I was thinking about is just when we try to enforce the sequencing, not by the rules of the protocol, but by some external off-chain powers, then this becomes risky because it opens the way, a path to some other behaviors like censoring of transactions and shutting down the miners.
When
See
it
what you're
comes,
saying. Yeah, go ahead.
does the distribution of the validators affect this? As in, if you have however many in different countries, or the spread, or just in terms of yeah. I mean, is as far as the legislation goes, wouldn't that couldn't you compensate for some of that with a distribution of people in different areas of the world?
So I believe that yes, you can keep running away from the governments on the miners or validators side, like from regulations into like some more crypto-friendly environments, but this opens a lot of questions about how long and how often you can run and keep moving your operations. And this might be different for validators, might be different for miners. The miners will want to be in the places where cheap power is available, and the validators will be in the places where, like, most likely where the infrastructure cost is the lowest, but also it might be related to the entities that have a lot of capital to stake, right? So there are different type of players, and they may have different ability to decentralize their operations geographically. So the very design of Ethereum 2 supports the decentralization of validation, because the validators should not fail together. When they fail together, then they risk slashing. So you are encouraged to make sure that you're geographically distributed, that your infrastructure is not concentrated on a single provider of infrastructure and so on, like single cloud provider. So this should all help. Yes, I mean, if you're asking, does it help? Does it mitigate the problem of the governments trying to censor the transaction? Probably yes. And because of the network design now encourages this, we're in a slightly better place.
I also wanted to ask how often speed is a factor in bundles, as in a lot of the setups that seemed to be discussed here, and also just the kind of classic ETH1 setup as it is now. How often are we seeing bundles that need to be executed really ASAP? Does that constitute like a significant percentage of bundles?
I cannot tell you the exact number because I was not looking at a statistic like that. It's just my intuition is that the big percentage of bundles probably is the one that's rushed, right? So the one that reacts immediately to the misalignment of prices on DEXs and so on, and the liquidation opportunities appearing in the very block. So sometimes you may have MEV bundles that are prepared for a few blocks ahead if you know that some events are unlocked on some block number. So if the protocol says that on block X, something will be available, like think of maybe some kind of token distribution events when the distribution starts on a specific block. This is when your MEV bundle is prepared to happen at a specific block in the future. So in a way, you still care about being fast, and when that block happens to be as faster as possible, and that's why you care about the front of the block. But maybe that fast has to happen from some point in the future.
No. White hat sweeps would be an example of that, if someone has their tokens locked in a compromised account.
Yes, although because white hat behaviors would, I mean, like some of it will be manual operation, like delivering set of transactions that protect the account, which will take time. So sure, we care here about the speed, but because it's a manual process, it's actually very slow if you compare it to the kind of speed that you want to achieve with the bots that are trading MEV. If these are the automated sweeps that try to remove the EVE from allowing the attacker, remove the EVE to prevent attacker from moving the funds from the account. So this has to be fast, like reacting very fast to any new transactions that are incoming to the account. So you want to reorder them, put them in the front, and execute. So again, you care about being to execute your bundle immediately when the transaction appears in the mempool. So most of the MEV and Flashbots will be this word flash there is there for a reason, right? You want that to happen immediately and in a transactional manner.
Yeah, so when we talk about the setups, like the one that's sticking out in my mind is the one where bundles are encrypted for a particular validator. So in those cases, how is speed assured? Because wouldn't you have to wait for that validator to show up? Now, I think actually that you probably answered half the question already, because in cases where you're waiting for block N, at least in the Eth2 setup, you should know in advance who the validator for block N is going to be.
Yes, exactly. So this is the situation when, especially on Ethereum too, you know in advance that specific validator will be creating block X, so you can send a bundle prepared for that block.
But with that, but for the cases where it really needs to be kind of like a as soon as possible thing, setups like that probably would cause bundles to be published a little bit later. Is that correct?
Yes. So I think the latency of the peer-to-peer delivery, it's something that would really not be solution of choice for bundle delivery. It does provide some kind of protection and privacy, but it doesn't provide the speed of execution. It introduces a lot of latency, but only on the distribution side. So the peer-to-peer delivery, instead of delivering directly over RPC by a relay with the simulations, pre-simulations. So decryption is not a problem. It should be very fast. But the fact that you have to deliver transaction in a peer-to-peer manner is a problem.
Great, thanks.
All right. Yeah, I just have one last question for you. I mean, like, I'm just trying to understand if we put MEV in like simple terms, very simple terms, it's basically the miners are trying to make profit by front running or back running and sandwiching and generally exploiting transaction. So if I can get some explanation for some terms that I came across, like fees-based forking attack or time-based attack, or what kind of exploiting we are generally referring to?
Yeah, so I mean, MEV is not only not exactly exploiting. I mean, like some of it is this bad MEV that we're talking about, but lots of it is also good MEV, which is just aligning the decentralized exchanges and making sure that everything happens smoothly. Like when you're designing the protocol to enable liquidations on the protocol, you really want those liquidations to happen because they're critical for the healthy operations of your protocol. Like a maker DAO wants the liquidations to happen immediately, especially at the times when the network gets clogged. You want to have the access to solutions like get close to miners immediately. So it's really important not to think of MEV as something bad. It has some negative externalities here and there, and those we should try to remove, and we should research actively the solutions to remove them. But MEV by itself is simply a very, very positive impact on the ecosystem and the gas prices, like if it's organized properly. As for the time-bandit attacks and the fee-based forking, so like the fee-based forking, I'm not entirely sure if I answer properly here because it's not like I've heard this concept many times. But time-bandit, it's all about using the reorganization of the blocks, recent blocks, to extract more MEV. And this is very, very dangerous for the network. So we consider this as one of the biggest threats to the network. Luckily, it's very hard to execute and long-term misaligned with the miners' incentives. So executing this kind of reorganization attacks, like ankle bandit or like long range reorganization. This leads to the loss of trust from the community, the disconnection from the relay network in most of the cases. So it's simply long-term not profitable for miners. And also, if interesting result of that is that if everyone starts to do that, then actually leads to a very chaotic system that leads to everyone losing. So when you start this game, it leads to everyone losing. And like from Flashbots' perspective, just to be aligned with the safety, long-term safety of the network and aligned with the ecosystem needs and community, Flashbots very, very clearly works on ensuring that this reorg attacks do not happen, are not enabled by the protocol. So there's the active research, and you can see like a few hours of recordings of top researchers analyzing that and telling how to avoid it, how to protect against it, how the markets behave in the cases of these reorgs happening. As the fee-based forking, so it's similar, like trying to bribe. I believe it's trying to bribe a miner to fork the network to move different way than the miner otherwise would follow, just to be aligned with community. So again, something that very often will be, probably always will be negative for the network, because suddenly you have a miner that is choosing the fork not based on the long-term health of the protocol, but based on the payment to the miner. But nowadays, Ethereum slowly becomes not very forkable because of the DeFi ecosystem. So we probably don't have to think that much about it as we think about reorgs.
Well, thank you for explaining that. I think Alita had one last question for you.
Yeah, just out of, so this whole thing is pretty new to me, and I think it would be really helpful to, like, the concept of MEVs. And I think it'd be really helpful to, if it's possible, give like one sentence kind of summarize like what it adds, like what's being added here, and like what's the purpose, and then like what's the difference from how things are done, or like the main drive to change. If that.
Yeah, so just to ask a question in most simple words, what MEV is, what Flashbots is. So MEV exists, it simply exists. Whether it's named or not, it's there. And MEV is ability of a miner to use their position of being a block sequencer to extract value from the network. Whether it's good or bad, the thing is, because they are powerful in the way of being sequencer in the given moment, they can extract all that value for themselves. So that's what MEV is. It can be good or bad. And they do that via reordering, censoring, or injecting transactions of their own. What it adds to the network is, in the bad MEV scenario, it takes some of money from anyone who trades on the protocols with a slippage allowed. And the good MEV is, it makes sure that all the liquidations happen timely and that all the prices are aligned in all the DeFi protocols. What Flashbots adds on top of it, it allows everyone to participate in value extraction, not only the miners. So it allows everyone to provide the service for the miners of providing this expertise of knowing how to extract MEV and taking some of the payment to the searchers instead of all the payment to the miners. And without Flashbots, you also have less efficient MEV because the miners don't know how to execute all the liquidations and so on.
Well, I can't say if the whole MEV thing is like overblown or not, but it clearly is an interesting concept, and I'm glad to know about Flashbot. Like, I think it's important for people to be aware of, especially when you are into mining Ethereum. So with that, we have hit the hour mark. Tomasz, if you would like to say any final comment for our viewers.
Thank you for listening. Keep exploring MEV, keep researching. participate in research, contribute to tooling, make Ethereum better together with Flashbots, together with other researchers, build your own tools. I think this is most important thing. This is where Ethereum thrives and has been thriving for a long time. And the thousands of contributors, thousands of developers, builders, building together the future of Ethereum and putting a lot of effort into the research. So it's beautiful. And MEV will be there, it will stay, but we'll make it just a good MEV in the long term.
Very well. Appreciate you taking out time, Tomasz, and talking about MEV and Flashbot. It was awesome. With the conversation today, I expect to see both MEV and obviously the Flashbot to be in action in coming years. Even you showed some diagrams how it will look like post-merge. So I hope that these presentation will help us understand more than the basics, and more contributors will come up, mostly which is required in the area of research. So thank you for that. And on this note, for all our YouTube viewers, thanks for watching. And if you like it, please hit the like button, share it with people of your similar interest. We are leaving a bunch of resources for your references in the description section, including the slides and Geth's Twitter handle in the description section. As usual, I'll be looking forward to your feedback. You may leave your comment. Let us know which proposal you would like to get explained. All suggestions are welcome. Reach us on Twitter or at Ethereum Chatter Discord. Next week, we will be joined by Philip Castunge to talk about EIP 1271, Standard Signature Validation Method for Contracts. So stay tuned, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't done it already. Keep watching, keep sharing your love with Ethereum Chatter. See you all in the next episode of PEEPanEIP.